Welcome. Today, we're diving into two really powerful verses from the third chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Imran. What's so fascinating is how they pit two huge ideas against each other. On one side, you have the absolute certainty of divine justice, and on the other, the complete delusion of relying on worldly power. So, let's explore how these verses build this incredible argument, starting with a declaration of pure certainty.
So we kick things off with verse 9, which is actually a prayer that states a fundamental truth. It translates to, "Our Lord, surely you will gather the people for a day about which there is no doubt. Indeed, Allah does not fail in His promise." So what's really being said here? Let's break it down.
Okay, so the first big theme here is this unwavering promise of a day of judgment. The verse doesn't frame this as a maybe or a possibility, but as a completely inevitable vow.
You know, the core message here is all about total, absolute certainty. The Arabic phrase, la rayba fi, literally means no doubt in it. This isn't just a suggestion, it's being presented as an unshakable reality, like a fixed appointment that all of humanity has to attend, where everyone will be held accountable.
So why this giant gathering? What's the point? Well, the commentary explains it as this profound demonstration of God's attributes. First, it shows off God's perfect power. I mean, imagine reassembling every single person who has ever lived. But it also reveals God's ultimate wisdom. This isn't just a head count, it's a moment of perfect crystal clarity where every soul is judged. It's the ultimate expression of justice, making sure that every single deed is finally and fairly accounted for.
But here's what's so cool about this verse. It doesn't just say it's certain, it actually reinforces it with a brilliant literary device. The very language it uses is designed to create this feeling of absolute conviction in you, the listener. So, look closely at the verse again. It starts out as a direct conversation with God, right? It's in the second person. Our Lord, surely you will gather the people. But pay attention to how it ends. The whole perspective changes. Let's see how.
This move actually has a name. It's a classic rhetorical tool in Arabic called iltifat. Basically, it's a deliberate change in the pronoun or the point of view right in the middle of a sentence. And why do it? To grab your attention, to make you lean in a little closer, and to really hammer home the point that's being made.
And this is where you can really see it shine. The verse could have just stayed consistent and said, "Indeed, you do not fail in your promise." But it doesn't. It pivots from addressing God directly as you to talking about God in the third person. Indeed, Allah does not fail. That little switch is huge. It transforms what started as a personal prayer into a universal, objective statement of fact. It's not just a believer's hope anymore, it's a declaration of a universal law. So how do people even react to a declaration this certain? Well, the commentary breaks it down into four different positions. First, you have the believer, whose faith is as solid as the promise itself. Then there's the doubter, kind of on the fence, not really sure. After that, you've got the denier, who just flat out rejects it. And finally, there's this fourth type, the argumentative denier. This is someone who doesn't just reject the truth, they actively fight against it, which the sources say was the case with some of the Quraysh tribe in Mecca.
Okay, so after laying down this foundation of absolute certainty, the Quran does something fascinating. It pivots hard. It moves away from the believer's prayer and turns its attention to the mindset of those who deny the stay, and it explores the very things they put all their trust in instead.
And that brings us to verse 10, which starts, "Indeed, those who disbelieve, never will their wealth or their children avail them against Allah at all." This right here is the powerful counter-argument to the first verse. It goes right after the common human habit of trying to find security in worldly things.
So the bottom line is pretty stark. For anyone who rejects faith, the two main sources of worldly power and influence, we're talking money and family legacy, are worth absolutely nothing on that day. They can't be used as a shield. They can't be used as a bribe. They're just useless as any kind of defense against divine accountability.
But hold on. Does this mean that wealth and children are just bad? No, not at all. The commentary points out a really critical distinction. These things aren't good or bad on their own. Their real value completely depends on the worldview of the person who has them. Think of it like this. For a believer, wealth gets transformed. It's no longer just a possession. It becomes a spiritual tool. You use it for charity, for good deeds, and it becomes an investment in the hereafter. But for the disbeliever, that same wealth is a total dead end. It doesn't matter how much they have. It's a currency that simply has no value on the day of judgment. And you know what? It's the exact same deal with children. The sources describe how a righteous child can be the source of continuous benefit for a believing parent. Their prayers can help them even long after they've passed away. But for the disbeliever, that connection is cut right when it matters most. Their children can't step in as advocates or offer any kind of protection from the consequences of their own choices.
And this brings us to a really key distinction the commentary makes. Look, in this world, wealth and powerful connections can protect you from other people, right? You can buy your way out of a problem or have an influential family step in for you. But the verse is making it crystal clear. Those human-to-human power games are completely irrelevant when you're facing God. Against divine will, they offer zero protection.
But wait, the verse isn't done. After spelling out what won't help the disbelievers, it delivers this incredibly stark and solemn conclusion about what happens to them instead.
And it is they who are the fuel of the fire. The imagery is just unbelievably powerful. It's almost as if their rejection itself, the very beings who denied the truth, become the substance that sustains the fire, a direct and devastating consequence of their own disbelief.
Okay, but there's a really important theological point we need to make here, something the commentators really stress. This verse is stating a general principle. It's describing the outcome for the category of those who disbelieve. It is not a specific verdict on any single person. According to the source, only God truly knows what's in someone's heart and is the one who judges individuals. We can talk about the general rule, but we can never ever judge a particular case. And so we're left with this big final thought. By showing us this massive contrast between the absolute certainty of God's promise and the absolute uselessness of worldly power, these verses force us to ask a pretty fundamental question. If all the things we chase, money, power, status, even family, are ultimately a mirage, what's the real currency? What's the actual provision that one should be preparing for that day about which there is no doubt?